know what the operators want. What do they want? And how do we develop technology the operators want to work with? I think that we need to include the end users. And end users are the operators, the air traffic controllers in my case. What do they want? And how do we develop technology the operators want to work with? Someone is not muted, so I think that we need to include. Thank you. Yes, so we need to include the end users. The end users are the operators, the air traffic controllers, and we must include them in the development process of the automation of the new technology that we want to implement. We must ask what they want and how they would like to work with it. Because if we know what the operators want, what the end users want, we can design automation and tools that support their job from their perspective. There are many ways of including the end users in the development process. For example, you can use interviews, questionnaires or surveys, and workshops. You can also use human-in-the-loop simulations. For this talk, I will focus on interviews, questionnaires, and workshops. With interviews, you get a lot of information from the participants, the end users, and you can ask follow-up questions in real time, which a questionnaire does not allow you to. You can ask all the what, how, and why, and you can get a deep understanding of what the respondents, the operators, thinks and believes. However, this requires a lot of time, and the number of participants might not be as high compared to a questionnaire study. You need to focus your respondents here. I will give an example of one interview study which we conducted 2 years ago. This study continues on the topic of involving the end users, the operators, in the development process to see what they want. We wanted to find out what air traffic controllers from all kinds of air traffic control environments thinks about human-human teamwork. This would be a start in finding out how air traffic controllers like to work and how we can make automation a team member. We used an already existing model of teamwork. This will have the same phraseology when talking about teamwork with the operators. We used the Big Five model of effective teamwork from Salas. We found that through these interviews that mutual trust, adaptability, and shared mental models were the top-ranked teamwork factors amongst all the air traffic control environments that we talked to. Through the interviews, by asking these follow-up questions, we found that the controllers thought that it is important to trust all the team members of the human-human team. This will most likely be the same for human automation teamwork. Many studies have shown that operators can have difficulties in trusting a new technology or advanced automations since they do not know how the automation is working and what will happen in all situations. But since trust is so important for human-human teamwork, trust will most likely be important for human automation teamwork as well. Through this kind of interview study, we could ask these questions about their view on teamwork and try to apply this to human automation teamwork. Continuing on to a questionnaire study or a survey study, compared to an interview study, a questionnaire study do not dig as deep. You can ask more people, but maybe not as deep questions. Here we focus more on the quantity, asking more respondents. This requires, however, a more extensive preparation work. Compared to an interview, you cannot ask the follow-up questions on the spot. Instead, all questions need to be predefined. However, you can prepare both Likert scale, which are questions where the answers can be ranked, but you can also let the respondents write down free text answers, which you can analyze with, for example, a thematic analysis. I will give an example from a study we conducted last year, still on the topic of including the end users and understand what they want. An online questionnaire consisting of leakage scale and free text answers was administered to 249 operational air traffic controllers in all kinds of air traffic control environments from 6 different European countries. The questionnaire asked about questions like how controllers perceive current air traffic control systems, important factors for human-human teamwork, important factors for human automation teamwork, and what controllers expect for the future air traffic control systems. Free text answers, which were optional, was also included in the questionnaire, and they were analyzed for the paper as an overall thematic analysis, but I will not talk about them here. I will go through only the overall results. The results show that automation is expected to increase in the future. Workload will stay at the same level as today. Situation awareness will probably decrease in the future, and that safety will also decrease. This is what the respondents thought through the questionnaire. In contrast to the quantitative answer, the free text answers show that while automation is expected to increase in the future and being a support to the air traffic controller, safety is also expected to increase, but only as long as everything worked as imagined. However, there is a fear that the roles of the air traffic controller and the automation would switch, making the air traffic controller a backup system to the automation instead. When it comes to the teamwork results, the questionnaire showed that adaptability and mutual performance monitoring were the most important teamwork factors for both human-human and human automation teamwork. Team leadership was ranked as the least important teamwork factor for human-human teamwork, and backup behavior was ranked as the least important teamwork for human automation teamwork. When conducting questionnaire studies like this, there is opportunity to include many respondents to see the similarities and the differences within and between groups. Through involving the end users, the air traffic controllers in this case for interviews and questionnaires, we have identified which teamwork factors air traffic controllers around Europe want to have when working with humans and working with automation. But to be able to design automation that support these teamwork factors, we now want to dig even deeper into certain questions, and therefore we will conduct workshops. Workshops is a good tool to use when you want to have a discussion with operators, designers, or developers, or any other. Workshops, just as interviews, allow you to ask follow-up questions, but with workshops, you also can have prepared exercises for the respondents, for the participants to conduct, which can open up even more interesting discussion topics. So I'm now in the planning phase of workshops that are based on an ongoing questionnaire study. So the questionnaire study focusing on the aspects of human automation teamwork and how the air traffic controllers want to work with an automation. After the analysis of the questionnaire, we will further discuss the results from the questionnaire with operational air traffic controllers in several workshops. This to explore the topic and the respondents even further. Having both questionnaires and workshops includes the end users in the development process. And the results from this study will be used in the development of the next generation design guidelines for human automation teamwork in air traffic control. So to the end of this presentation, if we know what the end users want, we can design new technology which inspires work, not taking the craftsmanship away from the operators. We must include the end users for them to feel included. Involving the end users, involving human factors design will only make the product more user-friendly. It will increase awareness of developing process when working with a new tool. It will increase situational awareness, both when it comes to the automation, when it comes to the situation, when it comes to traffic. It will also increase trust in the development process, trust in the new technology, trust in their colleagues. It will also increase a positive attitude and a feeling of involvement among the end users, making them feel part of the development and design process. Creating an understanding of why automation is implemented or why certain changes are made, make the end users part of the change and therefore increase an acceptance of the future technology and workplace. And all of this will contribute to the most important benefit of them all. It will increase safety. Thank you for listening.
Thank you also for the presentation. While we wait for the questions to be collected, it will be maybe Mike or Samuel will be giving a bit of information.
Mike, please go ahead.
Hello. Hi, testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear us? No, you can't.
I can hear you.
All right,
right.
perfect.
Okay. Sorry about the little technical or big technical hitch there. In case no one heard who I was, I'm Nimrod Lilith. I'm the Deputy Director of Research here at Saab NTU Joint Lab here at NTU in Singapore. And yes, we've got a number of questions to go through, so let's get cracking, shall we? Also, if you can hear me. First question, the results seem to show that workload is not expected to increase in future. Could this be due to the lack of ATCO experience with newer systems, do you think?
No, I think that the workload will stay at the same level as today is because automation will still be there to assist them. So even though the traffic levels will increase, automation will also increase and therefore like balancing it out a little bit. That's my thought.
Right, okay, excellent, thank you. I guess something maybe similarly related, did you find any insights on how you might approach measuring mutual trust in human-machine teamwork scenarios?
We did not go into trust as deep because we believed at the point of that study being conducted that the trust is a so broad topic, so that would only trust itself would need a study of its own. But it is a very important and interesting topic, trust, when it comes to automation. And we have seen in all of these studies that I talked about that trust is important and it's like the foundation for them to work with automation. So yes, we would need even more research in the topic of trust, I would say.
And I guess trust can be not only on the individual level, but perhaps even at the organizational level. So Perhaps we're talking about trade union trust of new techniques and technologies as well, potentially.
Definitely, because if the organization or the community does not believe in certain technologies, then they will not even try to develop it in the first place.
Yes, okay, fantastic. And have you actually had the chance to work with any trade unions regarding this, or is this something maybe you're planning to in the future?
Not unions, not directly unions. However, we have for the last study where we're also doing the workshops, we are working with air traffic controllers here in Sweden, a lot of air traffic controllers, and also we have we have a big coupons collaboration of some six European countries here in Europe. However, they are union related, but I have not spoken directly to the unions, no.
Right.
But I think that is a good idea, talking to them and see on the higher level what is being thought and what kind of experience and expectations they have.
Very good, thank you. And maybe just getting back to the studies that you have done, do you think that the ATCOs were particularly comfortable with treating automation as a team member? I mean, this may be a new concept. Do you think there's some adaptation that can come from that?
I think that the responses were very diverse. Some were really like both familiar with the concept of teamwork and that they would like to work with automation as a team member. Some respondents were very skeptic and did not really understand even the questions because what is teamwork? How do you define automation? And so on. So I would say, to be a little bit broad, that there are like two sides in air traffic control. Either you are pro teamwork and automation, because if you would like to have automation, you will also like to have teamwork because you want to be able to work with it, of course. But also, if you don't like the automation idea and you don't really understand it, then you don't even want to work with it. And so I would say it's two sides.
Okay, and I guess in the media, you often hear about AI being the future and robots taking everyone's jobs and so on. Do you think that maybe this is a potentially, at least partially, a generational issue as well?
Yes and no, because when I did a study a couple of years ago, then we talked to can I say elderly air traffic controllers, and they were more pro or more for the new changes, the development process, because they have been through this before. They know that when a new development in some new technology comes, it will work. We have seen it before, but the new students, they thought, are you sure? Because they haven't been through this before. They only know one system. So it can be a generation question, because also you can think that the younger air traffic controllers or the younger operators are more familiar with automation in general. Like you have iPads, you have cars, you have autopilot.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting, actually. That's not what I would expect, but I guess it makes sense. Yes. Some more detailed questions. What are some of the human automation cooperation questions you used, and did you test their predictive validity with respect to ATCO behavioral performance?
We did test this with age, domain experience, gender, and country. We did not see any differences that we could write down in a paper. The differences weren't that big. So I guess that the air traffic control community is kind of a homogeneous group, no matter where you come from. Sorry, what was the first question?
It was specifically about the specific human automation cooperation questions that you used.
Yeah, I don't have them here on a slide, but it was like on a Likert scale questions. When it comes to the questionnaire, it was a Likert scale questions, and it was kind of agree to disagree. I would like to work with, and I would like to know what the automation is doing all the time. Agree, disagree. I would like to know the automation should know my work level all the time. Disagree, not disagree. And so on. So it was on a Likert scale. It was, I don't know, maybe 35 questions, something like that. And we separate it to human teamwork, exactly how they would like to work with a human colleague and how they would like to work with an automation. And then we compared the answers.
Right, and they were identical questions for both, yes?
Yes.
Okay. If I could just go back to what you were talking about previously with the differences and ACCOs being a homogeneous community, we saw that you were working with ACCOs from different countries. Did you notice any differences in terms of, say, cultural biases and their opinions to use on automation, or did that come out at all or not?
No, actually not. I was surprised, but we didn't see any differences when it comes to countries. Maybe because it was all part of the Coupan's collaboration. Coupan's Sweden, Ireland, Denmark, Portugal, Croatia have the same system. They're working with TopSky, so maybe that's why they have the same background when it comes to air traffic control systems. However, also when it comes to certain countries, we did not get as many participants as we wanted, and that could also explain why we didn't see any differences.
Yes. And were any of these ACCOs remote tower ACCOs? Either have any experience at all with remote tower operations, and if so, did
some
you know
had.
Right.
It was both from and route control, approach control, TMA, and tower, and well, some remote towers. But since we conducted that study 2 years ago, so there weren't so many remote towers to speak about back then in operation.
Right, and did you notice any differences in their attitude towards AI or automation from that cohort, or is that not something you looked at?
Not what I did not look at it at that study, unfortunately.
Okay, a bit more general. Well, how would one go about safety assurance of human automation systems? Do you have any insights regarding that? Because obviously that's a key issue here in terms of certifiable AI and being such a safety critical.
Yes, well, I would say that the testing, the validation, the development process is the key, the most crucial part here. You can, of course, as my presentation was all about, you can, before you start the implementation phase or even in the development phase, you include the end users to see what they want, of course, through interviews, through workshops and questionnaires, but also the one that I did not talk about today, human in the loop simulations. Because if you already if you have prepared your product, so to say, with interviews, you know a little bit what the air traffic controllers want, and then you of course need to test it in a simulation and making sure that it works. And in that simulation, you can have another survey, another questionnaire study. You can have interview studies within the simulation. You can have, there are so many different situation awareness tests that you can do within the simulation. So yes, there needs to be extensive safety work before implementation.
Thank you. Do you see any technology, for example, something like mixed reality or virtual reality, as in terms of human automation for ATC? Do you see any scope there, either for evaluation or, in fact, as a platform for automation integration?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I think that's the future. I think that both at LFV, we have several projects when it comes to like digital air traffic controllers and trying to implement some kind of virtual reality, both when it comes to the actual tower, because the remote towers, that's the closest to implementation, I would say, when it comes to higher levels of technology in air traffic control. So the remote towers, of course, you can add virtual things on the screens. And we have projects on that, and we have projects on like how to make the automation more adaptable, more individual to the certain air traffic controller. And so yes, I think that VR it can be the future in air traffic control. I definitely see that, and we work on that at LFE. Yeah.
And when do you think this is coming? I guess just not only in terms of VR, because obviously there's technological and acceptance issues about that, but also AI automation in general. Do you think it's something that could be integrated in the next 10 years, or do you have a personal opinion about what the future might look in terms of timelines?
So difficult to say. I think that it might. Maybe it will be used within training and education before it's used in operational environments. That's my belief. But so hard to say. If I could predict the future, I would be rich.
Okay, well, I'm assuming neither of us are. So on to the next question. Do you have any thoughts about what the key factors might be that can support the transition towards human automation team?
Acceptance. I think it's acceptance, because all the air traffic controllers I've talked to who are for having automation or AI, they just say go for it. There's no barriers, there are no hinders. But if you don't accept it from the beginning, then there's a problem.
Absolutely. I totally agree. How is human automation teamwork going to be tangibly used in terms of a metric, for example, to convince policymakers or aviation stakeholders?
Wow.
Sorry to put you on the spot there. That's not my question, so I don't know if I'll be able to elaborate further on it.
Well, I guess that research projects needs to have these open validations. Well, this is just a guess. I get this is just a guess from my side, but I think that all kinds of projects, research projects, development projects, needs to have open validations and include also the policymakers, the one giving out money, everyone in the development process to see that, well, this is actually working. To include them in the validations or the simulations to see that, okay, so we are working here and there, and we are at this stage now, and it's working. You can see it's working. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess like a proof-based.
Yeah.
Going back to remote tower usage, we've got, I guess, perhaps a similar question, but do you have any expectations about how expectations or acceptance or trust might change in the future with an increase in remote tower usage and implementation across the world?
Well, since there has been more and more remote towers around the world, I guess that the acceptance of it is increasing. Since it's not only about the automation and the technology when it comes to remote towers, it's also about the social aspects, having new colleagues, having colleagues at all. Some people here in Sweden sitting in small towers, working by themselves for hours, not seeing a single colleague. Yeah. And then moving to a remote tower, having colleagues all of a sudden, be able to maybe have more ratings or endorsements so you can switch to sitting in another remote tower. I think it will open up the air traffic control community and the just being a air traffic controller. It can it can be a little bit more diverse than it is today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Did you explore potential human teamwork models and how this would be managed in the future as we increase levels of automation?
We did not look into different teamwork models. We used this specific one from Salas because Salas himself thinks that this model is good for any kind of domain and any kind of teamwork. So we said that, okay, we go with this one. And actually we agree a little bit with him. We thought that the model was good. There are, of course, other teamwork models that can be used as well. We did not test anyone else at this point.
But I take it at this stage, you don't see any pressing need to.
No, not at this point, but of course, if the person that asked the question have any good idea of other teamwork models, please let me know.
Okay, hopefully they do. If they do, we can pass it on. Do you anticipate future systems that can monitor at code and make inferences about the human controller's functional state may become reality in the future? And
yes.
Might these systems, in fact, have the ability, the controversial ability, to potentially override humans in this case?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. But yes, I do believe that there will be some kind of automation that can monitor the human, making sure that you're on the right workload level, that you have situation awareness, maybe that you can spot information on screens where you haven't looked for a while, but an automation that overrides the human. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's obviously, I guess, acceptance issues about that, right?
Yeah, I get acceptance issues, and also the responsibility question: who has the responsibility if something goes wrong? And that was something that we saw in the interview and the questionnaire study as well, that the people that wants to have automation, they are still a little bit worried about the responsibility question. Who will have the responsibility? Will it be can you blame an automation? But you can blame a human, but you don't want that, of course. But should you also, could you blame the programmer who wrote the automation?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So this is almost a philosophical question, I guess.
Yes. But an important one that we need to figure out. We need to have the answer to that really, really soon if continue on the track of AI.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Given the situation air traffic finds itself in now, and the dramatic changes that we have been going through and are still going through, do you have any feelings about the recency or robustness of automation? How can it be ensured given the rapidly changing air traffic situation, even over a few years from now? I don't know if this is more of an AI question or...
sorry, can you say that again?
How is the recency or robustness of automation ensured given the rapidly changing air traffic situation over a few years from now?
Yeah. Okay. No. Yes. No. I think that's the same answer as to a previous one. That we just need to validate the systems over and over and over. We don't push automation onto or AI onto any air traffic controller that hasn't tested before. And there is also, even though you validate it several times, you test it, you also need education on it. So so the air traffic control was most likely sit in simulators, for example, for a couple of hours before you actually use it in operational environments. That's you cannot just push anything into the operational environments without testing and education.
Yes, absolutely, and ongoing validation and testing, because as we've seen, things can change very quickly.
Yes.
Adaptability was rated quite highly in your questionnaires. How does this tie in with the use of AI-driven automation?
Well, adaptability, of course, in the perfect world, it would be nice to have an automation that would be adaptable, that would know my preferences, that works the way I do. If that comes or not, it's up to us, I guess, the researchers, to make that happen if we want that, if it's possible. But of course, I think that an adaptable automation would be really, really nice to work with.
And do you have any feelings at all at this stage, at least, as to how important that may be for acceptance?
Well, either you form the automation to work in one certain way, or you form the human to work in one certain way. It's what you want. But at the same time, since the air traffic controllers are such a homogeneous group, maybe they are already working in one way that is enough for the automation to be adapted to. And also there might be a risk if you want to have too many individual differences. Maybe it can be a problem when you are changing your position from one air traffic controller to another, and maybe you haven't changed your settings, and then you don't understand what's going on your screen because it's a setting of someone else. So there might be some risks as well with having adaptable automation and individual settings.
Did you find anything which emerged as not being appropriate to automate, and anything which came from ATCOs on how they could upskill or reskill to other tasks in the human automation world? So I guess they're two different questions.
We did not find anything that would be inappropriate to automate in that sense. The air traffic controllers gave examples of what they would like to have. However, they wrote it on a more high level. They wanted better communication between sectors, for example, not having to type information to the next sector, but automatically transfers, and maybe conflict and detection resolution systems, of course, a hot topic. And like automatic weather updates, and so I think that the air traffic controllers that gave actual wise examples, doable examples.
Indeed, it sounds like it's about a better information delivery as well, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Back to the questionnaire. Given human automation trust has been measured by numerous questionnaires, in what way is your existing questionnaire different from existing ones, if that was at all the intention? And how might it contribute to a better evaluation of this form of trust?
Well, since trust wasn't the main area of the questionnaire, I cannot say that ours are better than anyone else. There are most likely better questionnaires when it comes to trust. My questionnaire was a little bit more diverse when it comes to human automation teamwork in general. So I wanted to create my own questionnaire because I wanted to have answers to my questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Absolutely. That's the way I do it too.
Yeah. I didn't find anything that was that I wanted. I had questions and I wanted to ask them, so I did.
Great, thank you. I guess this next question ties back to something we were talking about earlier on. Are we able to design automation which can communicate the ATCO's workload and situational awareness back to the human? Or is this something that's been thought about, or maybe at least a prototype?
Well, yeah, that's a really, really good question. I've had that discussion before, that workload, I would say, is a feeling. I experience workload. However, I might have a high task load. If someone else have another thought about this, please let me know. Contact me, because I think this is really interesting. But I would say that I myself can only rate my own workload. If I experience something as difficult or as tough, that's only up to me. However, I can have a high task load. I can have hundreds of planes. Well, I know that's not true, but I can have a lot of planes in my sector, and I'm not stressed. I'm totally comfortable. But another person can have the same amount of traffic movements, but are super stressed.
Do you think this could potentially be measured by eye tracking or some other non-invasive inference technique?
Of course, yeah, I think you can measure workload or with eye tracking. If you blink more often, if you have dilated pupils, if you if your scan patterns is really like all over the place, and so on. Yeah, that can be indications of a high workload. But I think you need maybe a little bit more than that as well. But yes, I think that's a good start. Eye tracking, heart rate, sweatiness, maybe also how you speak could be an indication of stress or high workload.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Maybe just one last question is all we have time for, if I may. Speaking about the inference of the operator's workload, what about the automation's workload, for want of a better term, in terms of capacity or efficiency or confidence and situational awareness? Is that a factor? Do we have anything that can communicate that back to the human?
I think it would be good in some way to know what the automation is doing, and yeah, if it has time to add extra workload to it. Yeah, I think it's comes down a little bit to the topic of transparency, and yeah, how much because also knowing what the automation does and knows and how much it can handle also adds workload to myself.
Yes. And,
so yeah,
explainable AI, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but it's still maybe it can be relevant to know what the automation how high workload it has.
Yes, and that can help trust, of course.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. So I think we managed to get through all of the questions just in time. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for all the good questions.
Yes, thanks for everyone to providing the questions, and I'll throw it back to Michael now. Some closing thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Nim. Yeah. So I'm going to launch a poll for all the participants just right now. Please feel free to answer. We will have a couple of minutes. This is just 3 questions to give us a bit of feedback about this quarterly webinar series, and particularly the webinar today. Thank you. So while you're doing that, I would like to give thanks to those who joined us for today. It's been awesome having you, of course. The webinar team here, you can see it's composed of our co-directors, Professor Samir Alam, Dr. Jovis Ang. We have our Deputy Director of Research, Dr. Nimrod, who handled the Q&A, who facilitated. And behind the scenes, of course, you have Yix Lim, who was your question dude, who received your questions. And we have Ms. Biwi Ang, who has helped set up this webinar. And yours truly, Assistant Director of the Sub-NTU Joint Lab. Thank you very much for participating in the poll as well. I can see that 21 of you have now answered that. Yeah, we're about to close the poll in maybe just 30 seconds. Yes, please. Thank you very much for your thoughts. And again, we will be sending out the next information about the upcoming webinar for the next quarter. And we will keep you posted. So any final thoughts or words from Jovis or Prof. Samir, please feel free to chime in.
just want to say thanks to all the participants and to Dr. Asa for a wonderful talk and an excellent question and answer session. The amount of insight and the depth and the passion that you answered the question, I'm sure that has increased the awareness about the importance of the human factors in the automation that we should be looking in, especially when it comes to the wider adaptability of the remote tower operation. Human factors is a very important topic and must not be left with. At the end of the day, air traffic controllers are not the part of the problem, they are the part of solution. And this is what is the message I think we all can have from your talk. Thank you so much for giving us such an enlightening talk. And it was such a great pleasure to have you for our first international webinar. And so we are so glad to have you. Thanks from the entire team, Asa. And I thanks all the participants for their time and their fantastic question. And thanks to the webinar team for doing a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosamir. Jovis, any last words? No?
Not really. I think it's a great session, and I really enjoyed the talk. And I think the question and answer has been very interactive and got a lot of good insights into it. Thank you for all the participants for staying with us, and thank you to the team for doing a good job. And thank you our event guest, Usa. Really enjoyed your talk. Thank you very much.
Yes. Asa, any last words, please?
Well, thank you all for everything. Thank you for having me as a speaker. Thanks for all the good questions. I really appreciate the Q&A session myself. So thank you for organizing it.
All right, we've come to the end of the session, and just in time, I guess it's 4:59 here in Singapore. We wish you all happy Friday and have a great weekend from the Sub NTU Joint Lab. Thank you very much, folks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.